Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Dani.
And I'm Giacomo.
And this is episode 158.
We just got back from a powerlifting meet. I was handling my client, Alex Shopoff. His goal yesterday was to lift 1,000 pounds. And he did. So excited for him. He did take some cowboy moves on 2 of his attempts, but he still put 1,000 up on the board, and he had meet PRs across the board, which was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. He got 7 out of 9. 7 out of 9 attempts were good, and he broke 1,000 pounds on his squat, bench, and deadlift total, which I thought was super cool. And he was the oldest guy in the competition, which I know you said he had some mixed feelings about, but I actually think it was really, really cool. I mean, it was in Boston. It was in like the area with all the universities. It was like all college students and Alex. So I think that's pretty ballsy that he went out there and did it anyway and like lifted with gusto.
And he was looking at ways that he could break state records and thinking about how he could continue to do this. He's got his next meet planned in June. In some ways, the sport of powerlifting is accessible to everyone. In other ways, there could be a little bit of fear involved because 80% of powerlifters get injured. And as you age, you're working with a body that's perhaps been injured in all kinds of ways or has been strained in all kinds of ways. And here he is.
Well, first of all, he's not like 1,000. He's 46.
No. Yeah, we're similar in age. When I get up on stage, sometimes I have reservations like that myself, but then I immediately talk some sense into myself. And I'm like, yeah, look at you. You're out there kicking butt. How many 40-something-year-olds can say that they're out there continuing to put on muscle, continuing to get stronger and showing up in sports that are, some people feel that they're meant for younger athletes? Not true.
Yeah, I mean, powerlifting is accessible to everybody in the fact that anybody can sign up.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean anybody should sign up because it is a really, really taxing sport on the body, on your joints.
You have some lifters that are out there. Prime time is what they call the creme de la creme, the top level competitors that are out there lifting as much weight as possible. And there are some powerlifters that are in like their 60s and 70s who will lift more weight every year than you ever will for your entire life. I mean, there are some seriously strong athletes out there. Just goes to show what the human body is capable of when you take care of yourself.
Yeah, but powerlifting is a super fun sport to watch if you ever get a chance to go to a meet. I think it's really, really cool. We did miss the lady lifters in the morning because we got there just as they were getting their awards. I wish I had seen that, but it was already a very long day, so I think it was fine.
Yeah, and other than that, we got your birthday coming up on Friday. We got plans to go to an escape room. We're going to lay low a little bit, have a little couples massage in the morning. Her request, y'all, what do you think it was?
You already told them. It's already on another episode that we recorded.
A tea party. Who requests a tea party on their birthday? This gal does. So we're going to wake up, have a tea party, and then we're going to have fun.
Have you ever been to tea in England, like the real one? I was actually telling the kids about that this weekend because I have tea every morning. And the kids were like, can I have tea? And I was like, sure. And they have fancy little teacups, and they had like some fruity, no caffeine type of tea. And then I made them a sarnie. It was really just peanut butter and jelly, but like rolled up into these little strips. And I told them what tea is like. You get all these little sandwiches, and then you get scones, and then you get a tray of desserts. Like that sounds like my happy place to me. So that's what I'm hoping for.
I don't know. It kind of seems like a perfect segue to go right into this episode as far as like what I think my happy place is, which is getting drilled from the public with a bunch of questions on our personal relationship. I'm kidding. No, this is actually going to be a really good episode. We've done this one before, and we decided to do it again at the request of somebody who was like, hey, y'all have a pretty unique relationship. No, I don't think that our relationship is any sort of a unicorn. There are others that have relationships like ours where you work together, you live together, you eat, breathe, and sleep together. You're always together, and you work in some sort of like a niche industry. Ours obviously is pretty niche, but it is something worth talking about. And
I think it's pretty unique. I'm trying to rack my brain right now to think of other folks that I know off the top of my head in a similar situation. I'm sure they exist.
Well, we have clients that have major overlap between their work life and personal life, doing both of them together, running their own businesses.
Yeah, certainly couples run their
Yeah.
own businesses. I just not in vegan bodybuilding.
Perhaps not.
So I don't know. I think it's really interesting. An interesting thing to talk about. I mean, clearly you guys sent us in a lot of questions, so we will get to those. But just a little bit about Giacomo myself. I mean, one of the questions was, where did you meet?
We met on veganbodybuilding.com in 2008,
Seven. It had to be
2007.
2007,
Not when we
yeah.
started dating. Yeah, we were on the forum for like 2 years straight. And we were both posting our training journals and just chatting away with each other about whatever. And then there was a meetup in person, and the both of us decided we would go to said meetup.
So wait a minute. They don't even know what vegan bodybuilding is.
Let's tell them.
So it was a forum. So Facebook existed, but only college kids were on it. MySpace existed, but you couldn't really like talk to each other a lot on MySpace. And Robert Cheek had a company called veganbodybuilding.com. I mean, he still does. But back then it was a forum, like a web board, I guess, a message board that you could, it was all about vegan fitness and vegan bodybuilding and how to build muscle and how to lose fat. And it had like 1,500 active members, which, you know, seems like not a lot now with Reddits that have millions of people in them. But back then, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
It was a lot of fun.
And yeah, we talked on there. He had a training journal. I had a training journal. And we would just, you know, you could comment on other people's training journals. Like, hey, great job. Keep it up. Or ask them a question about this, that, or the other. And yeah, we were just friendly on there. We weren't like flirting with each other on the forum. Nobody,
No.
I mean, maybe somebody was, but I certainly wasn't.
I wasn't either, actually, at all. I just thought that you were really cool and you were very into bodybuilding, which I admired a lot. Actually.
I didn't look like I was very into bodybuilding, but so I got into it because I had been vegan at that point for, I guess, like 5 years. I had lost 90 pounds and I had kept it off, but I wanted to build muscle. So I learned how to lift weights, but the trainer at the gym said if I didn't eat animal products, I could not progress any further than I had. So I was like determined to figure out a way to do it. And when I found this forum, I was really excited. I was like obsessed with the forum. I think you were too.
I did not have the community that I was looking for in person.
Which is crazy because you lived in New York City.
Well, also I came from a very hands-on family where what I did was very baked into, like my social life was very baked into my family life. Large extended family, and I was very much so, we used to call me the black sheep, right? Because I was just so different from everyone else in my family. But in reality, I just did not have the social support that I needed for the lifestyle change that I was making. And I sought that out in person, but nobody was into fitness. They were just into like dieting and eating healthy and spiritualism and all that stuff. We won't go there. It's a whole separate...
we are going there. It's one of the questions, actually.
Well, we can go there then. For the purpose of what we're talking about right now, though, nobody was into fitness. So I was without. And that forum filled that void for me big time.
I knew lots of people who were into fitness. I didn't know a single solitary other vegan. Like, I literally did not know one other vegan. I had been vegan for years, and I still didn't know one vegan. So I was just so excited. And then Robert Cheek was hosting this thing called Vegan Vacation in 2008 in Portland, Oregon. I decided I wanted to go. Giacomo was already going.
Yep.
But the thought of flying across the country by myself to meet a bunch of strangers was pretty terrifying at the time. Now it's kind of funny that it was so scary to me then. But I remember messaging Giacomo and being like, hey, looks like you're going to this thing. You don't live that far away from me, which, yes, you did. But at the time, that seemed very close. I don't know why. It's like, let me drive to you in Brooklyn from Massachusetts, and we can fly out there together.
I wanted to know what your motive was. I was wondering where you were coming from. Why was a young woman from a bodybuilding forum wanting to come visit me. What were you thinking? Because we were just friendly on the forum.
I just told you what I was thinking. I just didn't want to fly. You were going, I was going. I thought, hey, let's fly over together. It'll be less uncomfortable.
I wasn't worried. I was like that all the time. I'm a very extroverted person in a lot of ways. And so I didn't mind it at all. I didn't think anything of it per se. I've done stuff like that many times over in my life. Just met up with people randomly and hung out. Didn't have to be, just my bros, for example. But I still do like to, I don't want to, I still like raise an eyebrow, like wondering if what someone's motive is when they're the one that initiates. So I was just curious, but.
In hindsight, it's the weirdest thing I've ever done, because if anybody knows me now, like I would never be like, hey, stranger, let's fly across the country together. I would rather get my teeth drilled than do something like that.
And I've asked that question a lot of times since that day because it's so uncharacteristic of the you that I now know.
I think I was just so excited at the prospect of meeting other people like me that I was willing to do something that was really scary. And I was in a relationship. Actually, I was in a couple relationships at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was absolutely not looking for another relationship at that point.
Right. And I sort of became a piece in the middle of all that because you were in relationships before we met. And, oh, gosh. I laughed it off, but that was a little awkward and uncomfortable for me. I'm not going to lie.
It was pretty uncomfortable for me, too.
Yeah.
I ended up in like a weird, if I say it that way, it's going to come out wrong. I was dating a person and then I was dating another person, but we all worked at the same place. And it was just this weird, uncomfortable, like, kind of fight, I guess, over me. So the two people didn't like each other at all. And then all of a sudden there was Giacomo. So then they didn't like him. They liked each other all of a sudden, but didn't like him.
It just the hell out of me, which wasn't fair because that is not something I typically do. I did not even know that you were in relationships. And then at that point, you and I had love for each other. Typically, though, my previous relationships.
You did know. You did know. That's not like it was a secret. Many times, this is a theme in our relationship. I tell Giacomo something and he does not believe me until he experiences it for himself. And then he's like, I didn't know. And I'm like, I told you.
I was going for my own perception, I suppose, because to me it felt safe because it was safe. It felt safe to you. Put it that way. Because something like that is just not a line that I would typically cross personally and not something I had been engaged in the past. So it felt a little weird to me. But you felt safe about it, so we kept going.
I mean, safe is a weird word to use.
Well, what word would you use?
You were just like, I'm done. I'm done with this.
Yeah, you were breaking it off. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was fine for me.
It's not like, I mean, just based on what I just said, I think anybody could say, like, that probably wasn't a great situation in the first place. So
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
There's no, I was going to say no love lost, but that's literally kind of what happened. So whatever.
Yeah.
And some people said, like, kind of who made the first move? What was
it me?
It was you.
It was me. It was definitely me. I liked you.
Because I told you I was not there to look for a relationship at all. So
I liked the idea that you were playful with me. I liked the idea that we tease each other about our choices in music or about like not knowing how to move through conversations or airports, stuff like that. Like I had traveled before and she hadn't traveled. And I told her, I was like, listen, you cannot put anything in bottles that are 3 ounces or larger.
That's not what you said.
What did I say?
No liquids over 3 ounces.
So you brought lotions.
Which is not a liquid. It's a lotion. I brought shampoo because it's a gel. I brought full-size bottles of shampoo and conditioner. I just didn't know.
Sure you didn't.
Be more specific with lotions. I mean, with liquids.
I'll keep that in mind.
So, whatever.
Anyways.
But yeah, he definitely started hitting on me first, and I really thought it was a joke, and I thought it was kind of a mean joke too. So I was not thrilled with this.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't realize that's the way you were looking at it. I just thought that you were disinterested in me and you felt weird about the fact that I liked you.
Nope.
So I persisted.
So this is going to sound like such a cop-out and such a weird thing to say. People are going to be like, of course you said that. But this is really true. Giacomo was like the best looking dude that I had ever seen with my eyes in front of me in my whole life. and he was vegan, and he liked to lift. He had long hair, true story. Oh my goodness. So then when he started hitting, and in my mind, yes, I've lost 90 pounds. In my mind, I'm still always that like overweight kid in high school with braces and glasses and the broken out face. Like to this day, it's still like something that I kind of go back and forth on. But at the time, like I very much was that person. So I thought you were playing a mean prank on me.
Well, we had that in common too. I was that person for quite some time as a kid. You're giving me the look. You don't think so?
No, you were like a geeky little, like elementary school, and then
Junior high
you hit
school.
a certain age and you just like shot up and.
Yeah, but you don't lose that person. That person's inside of you.
I agree, but I didn't know anything like that. Everybody on the forum knew that I had lost almost 100 pounds. So I don't know. I thought it was a mean joke, and obviously now I know that it wasn't. But at the time, I was literally like waiting for Ashton Kutcher to jump out and be like, "You got punked." So I was not buying what he was selling at all, but he was persistent, very persistent. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then eventually I believed him, and yeah, we started dating very quickly, like within a couple weeks. I remember we got back from the trip. I didn't go home. I stayed in New York for like a week while he showed me around New York. And then when I finally did go home, you like hopped on a bus a day later and followed me to Massachusetts. It was very, very, very fast. And then within 2 months, we moved to Portland, Oregon together.
Yeah. Left everything. Every single thing. Literally.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was wild. Everybody thought we were crazy.
We were.
In hindsight.
It worked out for the best.
In hindsight, there were definitely better ways to move a relationship forward than that. We are very lucky that it worked out because there were a lot of bumps in that road.
We had a lot of people rooting for us while also poking fun at our relationship, saying it made for the perfect sitcom at the time.
I mean, people still say that to this day. But yeah, I remember being we drove across the country. I remember being halfway across the country and realizing, like, I don't know this guy. Like, I don't know this guy at all. What have I done? I left my job. I left my friends. I left my family. Like, we have no jobs lined up. It was crazy. It was crazy.
I don't know. I had full faith and confidence in our relationship that we were going to make it the entire time. I did not, for a second, lose any sort of hope or trust in that. For some reason, I just don't know. It felt right.
We call it toxic positivity where I come from, but
I am committed. If I commit to someone, I commit to someone, I guess.
Naivety, oblivion. I mean, I could just keep going. But yeah, it was rough. It was really rough for a while. We had no money. We struggled to find jobs. I ended up getting a job, like working my ass off, like 80 hours a week. Giacomo stayed home and filmed his bodybuilding journey.
It was important. We had a documentary to create. It was a thing.
So I was not thrilled with that setup.
I made up for it, though. I was working overtime nonstop for a bank after the fact when I was done with the documentary.
But we did start vegan proteins in that time. But it was not a business.
No,
it was
the
a
world's
fundraiser.
First online vegan supplement shop. That's what the fundraiser became, which was something to be really proud of. Nothing of its kind existed. It was next to near impossible to find vegan protein powder. They had Vega, which we sold, but that wasn't a protein powder.
It was a meal replacement powder at the time.
Yeah, and then we just collected them all one at a time as they came out, connected with these companies as they made their first calls and first opened up the doors, and we just started making an entire assortment of vegan protein bars and proteins and everything, and we were it.
Yeah, that was
many years.
We were it. But it, you can't really, I don't think, unless you're Amazon, you can't make money in retail of supplement shops. And then, of course, as Amazon grew, because this was 2008, I think Amazon was still just books at that time. As it grew and grew, we didn't need to have that supplement shop anymore because people could finally walk into a store and just find these things. So it was a good thing for veganism, but it was kind of a sad thing for us. But at this point, I had already been coaching for a couple of years before we realized like the store
Right.
was just holding us back.
Because that idea of the documentary wound up becoming a thing. It evolved and it has been for the last 10 years, still evolving to this day, having the largest team of vegan strength and physique athletes in the world and them getting more and more competitive over time. We've had like 150 athletes compete at this point. So that silly documentary,
more,
that silly, dumb idea that
never
came
even
to
came
be.
out. Yeah.
It's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is pretty crazy.
It's been a wild ride.
And it was because of that stupid documentary that never came out that I watched you and Robert and Jimmy Sitko at the time. And was like, hey, you guys are, I don't know how to do this bodybuilding thing correctly, but whatever you guys are doing is dumb. Right. It doesn't make any sense. Right. Like scientifically, what you're doing seems wrong to me, and I don't know why exactly, but I'm going to learn.
Yeah, and that's how we started latching on to the evidence-based community when it came to training principles and programming principles for nutrition and everything.
Yeah. So that's how I learned initially. I actually learned how to coach bodybuilders, competitive bodybuilders, before I learned how to coach, like, regular people who wanted to lose 20 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
But now it's really wild how the business evolved, and now we have 4 coaches, and we're talking about, we might need another one really soon. Like it's crazy. But our relationship throughout all of that it's been hard.
Well, let's dig into that, because I feel like at this point we've caught everyone up to speed with the entire story arc of how everything that we did came to be. And we got a bunch of questions from what I know. I have several. I know you have several too. And I actually honestly haven't looked at them yet, but you have the ones from my account on the same phone over there that you have the questions from your account. So let's just go through them one at a time and see. I think she's looked at them already.
I sure did.
I have not. I like to go into a lot of things blind in case you can't tell.
I told him that you should know what these are before we get there.
Here you go. This is what we get.
Oh boy. Okay. Some of these are like kind of tough questions, actually.
I'm bracing myself.
Oh, okay. We'll start with an easy one. Do you sleep in the same bed? I often have to move to the spare room or couch to sleep.
We try to sleep. Well, yes, we sleep in the same bed all the time. And depending on what's going on or how lazy or whatever we're being, sometimes we don't.
And by we, he means him, because he will sleep on the couch and not drag himself to bed eventually. It never goes the other way.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's weird because in the middle of the night, if I'm hurting, I don't want to disturb her sleep, so I'll just leave the room as a kindness to her. Also, I get anxiety in the middle of the night if I can't sleep, and I don't want to be around someone else and take out my anxiety on them, meaning my partner. So that's my other reason for wanting to leave the room. So if I'm like coughing my brains out, I'll leave the room. If I'm upset with myself because I can't sleep, I don't want to take that out on her. Or if I'm feeling anxious for whatever reason, I just have a fear of sleeping next to her and I just leave. Also, I am the one who tends to fall asleep on the couch. That's just my thing. So for all those reasons, I do not sleep in the bedroom as often as you do, but we both always try to sleep together as often as we possibly can. It just feels better that way.
Yeah. But, this reminds me of something. A lot of people think, I shouldn't say a lot of people, enough people that have mentioned it to me think it's really weird that Giacomo and I are not like super clingy all the time. Like we don't call each other every 20 minutes when the other one is out.
We're never apart from each other.
Maybe this is just like weird relationship dynamics that exist in my family specifically, that they seem to think that's normal and I don't think that's normal. Like we're totally fine to take trips alone away from the other one. Like he visits his family more frequently than I can go, and that's fine.
Yeah.
We're okay to not be together all the time, but I think it's because we're together all the time.
Correct. If we didn't, we'd probably have a lot more back and forth like that. I think it would just be natural. And right now, it's probably natural to do the opposite, in all honesty.
I guess.
I suppose. I don't know.
What is your favorite way to spend time with one another?
I'm going to ask that question again. Is it still recording?
Yes.
Okay. Ask it again.
What is your favorite way to spend time with one another?
Our favorite way, this is a question we both answer.
I assume.
going to movies because you love it, listening to music because you love it, playing board games because I love playing board games, and video games because I like playing video games.
Yeah.
So it's like spending time together,
Just hanging
talking and
out.
doing at the same time.
Yeah, my
really.
favorite thing, I guess my favorite way to spend time with you is just
Yeah.
to hang out
Yeah.
where we're not working.
Yeah.
Because I would say my least favorite way to spend time with you is working.
We like being adventurous and active together. We don't always get a chance to because sometimes we're just so exhausted from our life that we literally just do lounge out and be lazy and talk or just stay next to each other and cuddle or whatever. But ideally, if we weren't exhausted from lifting like crazy and just living fast, high life with all the stuff that we do, I think we'd be a little more active and adventurous with each other, doing stuff like that. I feel like we both, I don't know, you tell me. I mean, I know when we go on vacation and stuff, we're like never not moving.
I can't. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine our life being different than it is. So it's
It will
hard
be
for
one
me
day, I
to
would
imagine
think. I don't
what
know.
we would be doing if it was different. I guess. I'm gonna bop back and forth here. Were you vegan when you met?
Oh, you take this one.
Yeah, duh. We were met on
Oh,
veganbodybuilding.com. Yes.
Yeah,
we were
same.
both vegan, but along these lines, where is it? It was such a great question. Somebody said, how did you get through his raw vegan phase?
How did I get through my raw vegan phase is what it is. I was so bought into that because it was really...
He was raw vegan when we met. I was just vegan. He was a raw food vegan, 100%.
And there's a lot of embarrassment and shame for me there because there's a lot of things that I followed and a lot of regrets that I have for the things that I followed that were part of the raw food community that were just accepted as things that you did to live longer and to be healthier. And in hindsight, that wasn't even remotely true. It was just a lot of quackery and all that. So it's hard to talk about that, but I'm definitely past it, I think, at
Thank
this
God.
point. Yep. But I also had a buy-in to that community because it was very popular, because it gave me conviction to go vegan, eat a plant-based diet, because it connected me to everything I knew and loved. And it was popular too, which made me feel like I had social support and something to grow with.
It was a lot more popular then than it is now. It sounds kind of crazy to say it now, but at the time, it was much more popular, and I'm very glad that died out. But I'll be honest, it was really hard for me because, again, I still had this vision of my mind of myself as different than I was, and I was trying to learn about how to be the best fitness person that I could be at the time. And Giacomo was older than me. He had more muscle than me. He was way more athletic than me. So I looked up to him in a lot of ways like that, which in hindsight, I shouldn't have. You really shouldn't look up to anybody like that, but I did. So a lot of the stuff that he would say would really influence me and really get in my head and confuse me, even though in my gut, I knew it wasn't right. I knew it didn't make sense. I remember having a conversation with you about, he was trying to convince me that cooked broccoli was toxic. And I was like, that cannot be true. How can somebody be telling me broccoli is bad for me because I cooked it? But I was just so young and naive and new to this world that I don't know. It just constantly made me feel bad about anything that I ate that wasn't raw. And while I do not blame you for any of this, I definitely spiraled into eating disorder world pretty quickly thereafter. So when he finally stopped being a raw food vegan, I was very happy about it. I was so happy that was done with. And literally years later, it took me years to reconcile with all of this good food, bad food bullshit that had ingrained itself into my brain, and which I had seen ingrained itself into so many other people's brains that was holding them back and keeping them really eating disordered. Oh, but it was really rough, triggering, I guess, if you want to use that word, because technically it did trigger eating disordered behavior in myself. So it was really hard. So hard.
I had a lot of pressure to continue, and I also had a lot of motivation to continue on a raw food diet, even when I had enough evidence pointing to the fact that I should reconsider what I was thinking, because I was the raw food vegan bodybuilder. And back then, that was actually a big deal. If you were to say that right now, it'd be like, well, that's cool. Are you healthy and are you strong and muscular? Because you still have to follow the principles of bodybuilding. Back then, it was a thing. And so I had to uphold myself a certain way for this persona that I created. And I felt like it was part of my identity, so much so that I could not detach from it. Even when I had a feeling and sneaking suspicion, I started thinking through things a little more. I think somewhere inside of me, I knew it, but I didn't want to admit it to myself in hindsight. And it lasted for far longer than it should have, honestly. And then there were many years after that where that like shame, regret cycled. I couldn't even face that myself. I couldn't even like whatever. If someone were to ask me about it, I just couldn't even respond truthfully and honestly and
Oh
openly
yeah,
like
because
I
you had to
can
like
now.
break it to people over and
It's
over
embarrassing.
again. Like, yeah, I'm not raw anymore. I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
I remember. I forgot about that, but yeah, that had to be tough.
Plus, you don't want to start to attack a whole group of people that, especially a whole group of people that supported you. And there are still plenty of more people these days that are going raw or are raw foodists, but they're doing it in a much more practical way. There is that fringe area.
That fringe area is making a comeback right now, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
But there are also people who are a lot more practical that sort of blur the lines between a whole food plant-based diet and a raw food diet, where if you look at them, they're perfectly healthy, more or less. It's just their personal preference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, everything about it was weird. The dogma around the raw food community
Intense.
was like really messed up.
Yeah.
Like super messed
Well, the
up.
spiritual component made things very hard to be rooted in reality and be grounded as far as the reasoning behind eating the way that you ate and stuff like that. People got a little too wishy-washy with it.
Yeah, and I actually think that when I met you, I was much more like open to these other ideas.
Well, you were crunchy too.
Oh,
you were very crunchy.
We were very crunchy.
Yeah.
But I was open to like these ideas of things like like energy, which I mean energy exists,
It does.
right? But I mean you know what I'm
Yes.
talking about. Like I would have things like crystals, mostly because I thought they were pretty, but I would be like, well, this one represents this and this one represents that. And I actually think a lot of that raw food bullshit and being able to like see so clearly through it, like David Wolf telling people to take their most expensive supplements during the waxing moon, and me just looking at a room full of people slack-jawed nodding and being like, this is insane. I actually think seeing that so close was one of the reasons I am like so pragmatic now.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because there are a lot of things you can't explain, and there are a lot of reasons to be a little more connected to your soul, we'll say, for lack of a better word or lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah, but some people just ruin it for everybody.
Exactly. And I guess we were part of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, well,
in some ways, I was.
You were.
I'll take the blame. Yeah. Sure.
So there's a lot of questions in here that are kind of tough questions about like, basically, what is something that drives you nuts about the other person? What is your biggest pet peeve? What is your biggest disappointment? Like, those are pretty big questions, I think.
Well,
and there's several of them, so I feel like I can lump them together. Go ahead.
Oh, jeez. Well, the first day that I met you, that's not true. Let me backpedal here. The first couple of weeks that we started living together, there were like 8 coffee cups in the living room next to each other. And sometimes there is a tendency to have multiple things out in some sort of like a chaotic, weird, doesn't make sense kind of way. And I'm kind of like, no.
Yeah.
No, please don't.
Yeah.
That's a little, it can be a little bit, you can look at it in a sweet way and be like, oh, this is just something that is one of her many idiosyncrasies and she's adorable. And then in another way, it's like, this is my environment and it's kind of unhealthy.
Oh, it's okay. So
sorry, I don't mean to be so
to
dramatic.
flip that the other direction.
Let's hear it.
Well, first of all, it's kind of true. It's mostly true. But the way Giacomo paints it makes it sound like we live like slobs, which is probably the thing that upsets me about this thing the most. Like, it's kind of unsafe. Is that what you just said? Kind of unhealthy?
Well, when I say unhealthy, I mean it's just not an environment that feels comfortable to live in. But we
That
don't,
sounds
neither
like-
of us,
It sounds like we're living in a place with a MRSA. Like,
not like that, Danny. Both of us keep a pretty clean environment as far
Exactly.
as hygienically, so clean. But I think sometimes the environment is just a little too chaotic for my liking. Put it that way.
I'm a scatterbrained person. I'm absolutely a scatterbrained person, which most people don't think or wouldn't expect that from me, but I am. Like, little things. Little things. I lose my glasses probably 10 times a week. Note, I'm not wearing them right now. I have to have chapstick in every room of every house, in every pocket of every coat. Like, I have to have these things. I have multiple of the same things in different rooms so that I don't lose them. I forget little things constantly. Sometimes I walk into the kitchen and every cabinet door is open, and I realize I left the room with every cabinet door open. So, like, stuff like that. But yeah, neither one of us is like dirty, but I can absolutely be forgetful in like really benign ways, but I could see how they would be annoying. On the flip side, I feel like Giacomo has some like obsessive tendencies towards certain things, but only if they're things that he didn't do.
Such as?
Such as coffee cups on the counter, but protein powder spilled everywhere on the counter can stay for like a week if you did it.
It's an interesting perspective. But rather than going back and forth over here, I want to know something that irks you that's not like a direct opposite of something that irks me about you. I'm curious.
Oh, okay. So
That's
here's
where I
like
wanna go
kind
with
of a
this.
big one.
Yeah.
I made a joke about it earlier, but I think it is kind of true. Giacomo definitely leans into that toxic positivity stuff
She's right.
that as soon as I start to hear it, like, my brain just shuts down because it is so unrealistic to me. Like, I think I'm a pretty optimistic person. I might not seem like it at first, but the more you talk to me, the more you realize I actually do think a lot of things are possible. I think success is possible. But I'm also very realistic. But Giacomo will just be like, anybody can do anything no matter what if they just try hard enough. And I'm just like, ugh. My brain just leaves the conversation because I don't think stuff like that is true. I think it overlooks a lot of nuance, and that's always tough for me.
Yeah. I don't have any rebuttal for that, honestly.
I don't need a rebuttal. It's fine.
I understand where you're coming from for sure, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, the things that we're talking about while we're being critical of one another, we've managed to balance each other out on, and now we both have the best of each other, which is the beauty of being in a relationship committed for this long. However, these are definitely like some of our starting points and some of our blind spots and some of our weaknesses
Oh my
as
gosh. Well,
we've grown with each other and grown independently of each other because of being with each other.
There were so many issues for so long that were very big. Like, some of these I can't even answer. Someone says, what about your partner disappoints you, and how do you cope? And I think disappoint is such a strong word.
It is a strong word.
That I don't think...
Where can we go with that question, Danny?
I don't think that you disappoint me.
At the very core of who Danny is in this relationship is the part of me that I sometimes lose in this relationship, where I feel like there's always a reason to be together and to work on it and to grow together and to be with each other and committed. And I fundamentally believe that. And at times when I lose that feeling, she brings me back. And I think if you have that as your foundation in your relationship, then you can work through it. There's nothing that could truly disappoint you. Like, you have each other. What more? If everything else is without, you have each other. There's always a starting point. So that's why I feel like the word disappointing is kind of hard to go on.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard to think about a time where I felt disappointed. And I'm not, I mean, maybe like little disappointments, like, oh, you said we would go do this thing and now you're too busy to do the thing.
Sure.
But like big picture disappointed? I don't think so.
No.
So, but kind of along the same lines, how do you deal with anger or resentment towards your partner? Do you have an argument style?
That is a loaded question because I feel like sometimes we do this really well and other times we do this really poorly.
Mm-hmm.
We both have the capability of needing to have the last word, and
Needing to be right.
I'm going to refrain from responding on that one. I think we also have the ability to be a little loud and explosive with one another and to not back down. I think we both have the ability to carry on and even when there's not a conversation, it's completely devolved. I think we both do stuff like that is unhealthy, but I think that happens less often as we continue to work on our style of, what was the question again?
An argument
Arguing.
style.
Our style of arguing.
Yeah, I feel like we just catch
Mhm.
it much earlier now.
Yeah.
Like when you recognize, like, oh, this conversation is not going to go anywhere good right now. Like, let's just call it and walk away and come back to it at a different point, and hopefully we'll be like better people at that time.
Or maybe have like little bits and pieces during an argument to focus on where we both know the parts of an argument that happen where it devolves and we sort of like know each other's, I'm about to do this or she's about to do that. Let's go ahead and go there before this argument continues. Like what are our patterns? What do we typically do in an argument where this thing goes south rather than the thing that we're actually arguing about? Put it that way. Because if you start to argue about the thing you're actually arguing about, you're going to lose most of the time. I think.
Yeah, so oh my gosh, I have so many things to say about this. So one, I think the biggest thing that we've done to help like improve this over 15 years, 16 years is to always try to approach any disagreement under the assumption that the other person is not trying to hurt you. That that you guys ultimately want the same thing. Even if you're not doing it very well, like if you go in with that assumption, not like Giacomo's trying to fight me right now. It's like, oh, I know Giacomo like has good intentions here, and if you can keep that in mind, I think that helps so much. The other thing is to recognize that a lot of times the thing that you're fighting about is not the thing that you're fighting about.
Exactly.
The dishes in the sink or like not getting put in the dishwasher, that's not what you're fighting about. You might be fighting about like not feeling like your feelings are valued or
Right. But here's where it gets tricky, right? If you stay there all the time in the safe zone, you still don't get to tackle the thing that actually triggered the argument, which is technically what you want to have a conversation about. So if you go there and you realize this thing devolved from a conversation to an argument, let's go ahead and like cut out the things that are causing us to argue about each other. Once you do that, you can get back to the conversation, the thing you actually talk about. And after a certain period of time, like Danny said, if it's not going there, you call it. You call it because it ain't worth it. And then eventually you get back to the conversation about the thing that you want to actually talk about. I feel like that's a pretty sound strategy for us that's worked for the most part. It can be frustrating because a lot of times you don't actually get the conversation you needed, but that's your fault, both of you. Like, you got to figure it out, right?
I wonder if these lights are dying right now.
Maybe Danny's giving us a little bit of a light show right now.
I think they are dying. That's all right. I'll fix them later.
That's okay.
But if we had to say, like, what is our shitty argument style?
The other one.
Mine is sarcastic as hell, and Giacomo's is defensive as hell. And that is not a great combination together when we are not our best selves.
I don't think you're right.
Would you like to defend yourself? Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to something a little bit happier. This one's kind of fun. If you could assign each other a superpower, what would it be?
Ooh. If you could assign each other, so I'm assigning you a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really bad with this question.
Yeah, see, I told you you wanted to hear these questions beforehand, so you wouldn't have to think about them.
Go ahead, you go first.
I would assign you that you did not need to sleep anymore. I feel like you would love that. As it is, he wishes he didn't need to sleep, so.
I guess you're right about that.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to assign you a superpower, jeez, what are superpowers? Give me some help here.
Come on, things that people cannot actually. What do you mean? What is a superpower? What? We'll come back to this.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
He's hopeless.
I'm sorry.
Favorite meal that the other person makes.
Favorite meal that the other person makes. Oh gosh. Geez, it's just tough because I mean, and I'm not saying this to stroke your ego over here. Everything you make is pretty damn good. Wouldn't say there's one thing that is a favorite of mine that you make. Although, okay, birthday cake. You can literally tell her anything you want when it comes to making cake, and she will make it for you.
I do love making cakes.
You could try just about anything, and she will make that cake for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite thing you make, birthday cake. She'll insist upon it too. She'll be like, I'm telling you, I'm gonna make you the cake you want for your birthday, whatever it is, and she'll make it.
Yep.
How about me?
Stuffed artichokes, no question. He makes these stuffed artichokes. They're stuffed with like a weird combination of like breadcrumbs and spices and raisins and pine nuts and vegan cheese and so much tomato sauce. Ugh. It is so crazy good, and it happens like maybe once a year. Maybe. Actually, you haven't made it in a long time.
Maybe it's time.
I think it's time.
We're a little overdue.
I'm hungry right now, currently. If your relationship had a theme song, what would it be? He's never going to be able to answer this question.
Oh, gosh. Sorry to do this to you, Whitney and Steve. We just had a conversation a week ago, but I'm going to steal your theme song. How about Pinky and the Brain?
Oh, sweet Jesus.
You don't like that one?
I mean, it's a funny song.
I think it's kind of cool.
I assume you're Pinky.
Sure. I'll be Pinky. Do you have a theme song for us?
Yeah, I do.
Which one?
It is by the Goo Goo Dolls.
Okay.
Which is my favorite band of all time ever. And it's actually a song that it's never been on the radio or anything, but it's called Keep the Car Running. And I think that it is probably my favorite song that reminds me of you.
Okay.
But, I have like a million songs that remind me of you. But I think that's the one. And it reminds me of us, like our relationship. Let's see. What else do we have here? Have you ever gotten upset with one another while training together?
We went through a 2-year phase just recently where we basically stopped training with each other altogether because we were so in our own...
That wasn't why, though.
No, I'm just teasing. I'm just being dramatic to be whatever. But I will say that we were getting pretty easily irritated with each other on the gym floor for a couple of reasons. I think one was we were both listening to whatever in our headsets, and then it was a matter of like taking our headsets off and on, like stupid things that just shouldn't be. Or like lifting styles were different and we wanted to lift with each other, but we also didn't. Or how about we first met? When we first met, I didn't like her critiquing me at all. At all. I was like, listen, I've been lifting since I was 14. I don't care that I'm half repping out there. I don't care that you're lifting on a forum for the past 2 or 3 years with me. It wasn't her per se. It wasn't the fact that I was lifting longer than her. I'm just poking, and that is
what he was saying at the time, though.
I was not open to feedback on the training floor from pretty much anyone, honestly. I wasn't really open to training feedback much. And obviously I took that out on you. Mm-hmm. I was a little prideful about that. I mean, we definitely had our arguments on the gym floor.
But actually, I don't think any of them had to do with, like, most of them didn't have anything to do with training. I think they had to do with the fact that we are never apart.
Yeah.
And, like, people are not meant to be together that much. So.
Well, look at us right now. I mean, we're having the time of our lives out there training together. To me, you and I lifting together right now is better than it ever has been. Things come around.
Yeah, I know. But also, our work, I think actually a lot of it has to do with the fact that our work together is much smoother than it used to be. Mm-hmm. Which is, I'm certain, one of these questions. But I'll get to it. But to answer the question, yes, we have absolutely, and I know this person followed up and was like, me and my husband, sometimes we get like angry at each other on the gym floor, and I just don't know if that happens to other people. And yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah,
I mean, angry might be too strong of a word. Irritated, I think, is probably a better word.
Sure. The way that I like to frame it these days is like, you're going to lift, you're probably going to be angry and like super physically aggressive because you're lifting weights. So if you come in it from that place, it really doesn't matter what's coming out of your mouth within reason, because you're both physically aggressive and you're going in there to be angry and lift hard and heavy. So it's only natural that that's going to come out with whatever you say and how you say it to your partner. So as long as you don't take it out of context, then it's kind of an outlet. It's kind of a nice outlet, actually.
Yeah, but I think if we didn't like live together and work together, it probably just would have been it just would have been more fun for longer, I think. But it's fun right now. I don't know where the question went. I definitely know that it's here, but basically, oh, here we go. How do you separate work from your relationship? This is from somebody who also owns a business with their partner.
We tried saying that this was husband or wife and this was business partner thing. We stopped saying that, but we tried that for a little while as a strategy.
I say it. I still say it. I say it. I do. I say, like, your wife needs to talk to you or your business partner needs to talk to you, because I think it's important to try. I mean, it's like an exercise in futility.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
Because no matter what,
it's going to come back to it.
My business partner is always going to be my husband. So if he says something to me that, like, if somebody in an office said it to me, I wouldn't think twice about it. But as a husband saying it to me, I'm like, who do you think you are? Like, you can't talk to me like that.
Really?
Or vice versa, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, it's true. That is true.
It's no matter what, your business partner is your husband or your business partner is your wife. But I do think that it is very helpful to try and separate those things if you can, as best you can. So that's one way we do it, is I say it, your wife needs to talk to you. I need husband Giacomo right now.
I think you just get a little better at it the more you go at it.
But I also think
practice
of like trying really hard to not talk about work stuff when you're not working, which is super hard.
Not even necessarily practical, because work these days follows you everywhere on your screens or in like whatever you're doing, when you just find ways to do stuff while you're moving out and about, even when you're off from work, especially when you're running a business. So I don't know that I agree with that statement anymore, in all honesty. But
well, you may think you don't agree with it because I've gotten so much better at it. But if I started doing it again, and Giacomo was actually the reason that I worked really hard to do it way less.
I want to take that back, though. I don't know if it was the smartest move, honestly. Funny that I'm coming around now. I know. You just
are the most oppositional person on earth.
I change my mind like anyone else. But I think it's one of those things where you have to use your better judgment. It's one thing to have a one-off about something or to say a couple of things, but when it just becomes constant chatter while you're hanging out to the point where you're not actually hanging out, that's when it's problematic. If you can't have 15 minutes hanging out with your partner without chatting about something, and your intention is to actually hang out, that's a problem, I guess.
No, it becomes a major problem.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that if it went the other way and I was constantly talking to you about personal stuff while we were working, that would drive you up a wall.
Not really, believe it or not.
Yes, it would. Okay. You guys are now part of the experiment, because I'm going to try to start doing it and I will let you know what happens. But I suspect it will not go well. Giacomo does not like to be interrupted with things that were not part of what he was already doing at all. So if I busted in while he was in the middle of doing something really important, like, hey, I can't even think of something that doesn't have to do with work right now. That's how lame our personal life is. Hey, I was thinking that we could do blah, blah, blah with the kids this weekend, while he's trying to work on something else. That would end badly. That would end with I'm not talking about this right now. Please leave. I'm in the middle of something. For sure. So, Giacomo is the one who pointed out to me that I did this constantly. Talked about personal stuff at work, talked about work stuff when we were trying to not work. And I think that all goes back to how scatterbrained I am. Just as soon as something pops into my head, I feel like I have to say it or else I'm going to forget it forever. Which is true, which is why I have to make systems for myself to remember things, which is why I have so many sticky notes and folders and planners and digital planners and calendars, etc. So I think that has improved that. No, it hasn't improved that.
I have all kinds of thoughts to share, but I was curious to see where you were going with it. No, I think I could have been a little more committed outside of my 9 to 5 with conversations about work. I just think there's a limit at some point, right? And again, if it's hard to focus and you don't make an intention to be present with whatever you're doing when you're hanging out, and all you can talk about is the work task or you're actually working on the work task, then you got to find a way. You got to find a way. I don't think a little bit of chatter here and there or a little bit of talking about work outside of work is, I don't think you could really have a successful business without that, in all honesty, as you continue to grow your business. But if it becomes the only thing, especially when the object is to hang out, then
Which
it's a
it has
problem.
been. Like, we've gone through phases where that's all there is. All there is work talk constantly, and that's not healthy either. So, like, that had to be walked back, and I think it's been for the better.
Mm.
So, who wears the pants? This is kind of a joke because Giacomo's the one who asked that question.
Well, I am literally wearing the pants right now, so
I'm also wearing pants.
those are not pants; those are leggings. Sorry.
I don't know. I think that we
wear the pants in different ways.
yeah, and at different times.
Yeah.
And we just like take the wheel at different times.
Yep. I
And
think so.
Yeah, I think we do a good job keeping most things pretty even.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some things Giacomo always does more of and some things I always do more of, but it's not like, I hear a lot of stories about women especially who work full time, take care of their kids, and then do like 80% of the domestic labor. And I always feel like angry when I hear that, but also kind of sad, but also really lucky because I don't feel like that at all. I don't feel like that even a little bit.
We wind up becoming invested in certain things that one takes the wheel on more than the other, whether they're better at it or whether they just got involved and invested in it. And there are some things that, like Dani said, that either she's better at or I'm better at, and the other one of us, rather than feeling like that person is taking the pants, wearing the pants, excuse me, sorry, we just wind up following the other person's lead. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. So that has been, there have been moments where that's a bit of a struggle in business, though.
It could be. It could be.
Where it's like, okay, who has the final say on this decision? Because if we don't reach a unanimous decision, someone's got to make a decision. Like, that has its tricky moments for sure. So we've kind of like tacitly been like, this is kind of your wheelhouse in the business and this is kind of my wheelhouse in the business.
I think we just take turns with it.
No, like there's some stuff that you just handle and there's some stuff that I just handle. I handle most of the creative stuff. You handle most of the like finance bookkeeping stuff. Mm-hmm. It works. Okay. Lots of questions about intimacy and how it has changed over the years. And I guess that's pretty much it. How is it and how has it changed over the years? Don't be too graphic.
We can.
Oh, have you ever dealt with dry spells? Yeah. Contest prep. Hello.
Contest prep, or if we're working around the clock and we literally are both too tired.
Or when we had the kids for like a long time.
And that was complex as far as how we felt in general about our home environment. It was a little challenging.
And just as a side note, we do have questions about that as well, like the periods of time that the kids have been here, and we deliberately, that's the only thing that we chose to like not talk about.
In the spirit of not
putting their business out on the internet.
And also having a personal life, right? You don't have to share everything, even though you can.
But suffice it to say, that was very complicated. It was probably the hardest thing that's ever happened in our relationship, but we are on the other side of it, so.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So
intimacy, dry spells, they've happened. But I don't think either one of us is like gonna lose our minds if it doesn't happen.
No, I think it took a very long time to learn each other's style of intimacy. And I don't just mean being emotionally intimate with one another. I mean literally how the both of us like enjoy being intimate with one another physically.
And the last question was like, what does joint meal prep look like for you guys?
Okay, unfortunately for you and I, our meal prep is largely unrelatable to the average person and even to many people because our lives are so incredibly busy that we rely on convenience foods,
We'll elaborate on that because that could easily be construed as like junk food.
stuff that can be prepped fast. We don't batch cook much foods ahead of time. We both,
We cook a few things ahead of time.
well, some stuff like vegetables, sometimes grains, for example. We stock similar foods. We both sort of agree, like, yeah, we're gonna lean into potatoes and berries and apples this week, for example. So we'll both pull from the same kinds of foods and we share a grocery list and we collaborate in that way.
But we eat at different times
And
than
we
each other.
prepare our food differently.
Yeah, it's just, I know what this question is asking. They're thinking that we like decide what we're going to eat for the week and then we make it all on a Sunday and we sit down and have dinners together every night. And like, we don't. That's another thing that our family thinks is super weird. Like, anytime we do get to have dinner together, like, that's awesome. Love it. But it doesn't happen very often.
And what percentage of your meals do you eat at your desk?
I try I mean,
Really?
yeah, no, I don't do
I
that.
eat at my desk like 70% of the time.
No.
For as an example.
I mean, it happens. Sometimes snacks I'll eat at my desk.
I eat in my car often. I'll literally take my pre-workout, like I've made myself proach and I'm eating in the car somewhere, like on the way from the post office to the gym. Like, how are you gonna meal prep for that with somebody, for example?
Yeah. We're kind of utilitarian about the way that we eat. And that's not because we don't like food. We love food and we love good food too.
We have different schedules. I'll go to bed 2 to 3 hours earlier than her. And if I want to eat something at a certain point for dinner time, my dinner time's gonna be different than hers. Like, again, convenience and just the way that we do things, it makes it very hard to have this. But we are trying to work towards having more stuff that we eat and share together. Well, at least I am. That's my intention this year. I know we spoke about it a couple weeks ago. Like, I asked her, I was like, hey, what kind of, you like soup? You like sandwiches? So who knows? Stay tuned. We may get there.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm thinking of
Yeah.
like Natalie, for example. Natalie
Right.
preps all of her food and then preps all of George's food for
But
the
George
whole
is out of
week.
the house most of the time.
Right.
It makes sense.
Or I'm thinking of other couples that do exactly what I said. They decide what they're going to eat for themselves and their kids.
They have family.
And they
makes
prep
sense.
it for the whole thing. But yeah, our lifestyle is just very different. And I'll tell you, when the kids were here, I think I can talk about this. My schedule was very different. Normally, I eat dinner at like 8 at night. When the kids were here, I ate dinner at 5.
I was in the middle of a prep.
And that
didn't
sucked.
work. When I wasn't prepping, when I stepped out of my first prep and we had them, it was just you, me, and them. I think we were eating a lot of meals together at that point. It made sense.
Well, you would sit down and eat with us sometimes, and
No,
Daisy
no,
would say,
no. When we were back renting, not here.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we were.
So, unfortunately, excuse me. it's hard for us because our times with family setting, children, they were not something we grew into. It was very acute.
It was very sudden.
And it wasn't planned. So like if I was in the middle of a prep, for example, or we were living together with your mom for the first time, and then, for example, like it was very situational.
Yeah.
It's hard
very
to
strange.
Exactly. So it's not, I don't know how to say it, but like it's not something we could be like hypothetically we would have did it this way if this was our family life with children.
The only thing that I could say is hypothetically, if I had more time, I'd probably make us both meals.
Yeah.
But I don't have more time.
Yeah.
I work full time plus whatever that I have no idea how many hours it is. So
but you don't know. We don't know what 2024 has in store for us, and we got some high hopes and not expectations, high hopes for this year. We're lifting together. We are doing our cut together. So you may very well be surprised what we come out with this year. We may have some stuff in store for you with our eating habits and prep and all that.
Yeah, we'll still do videos. Like I've done videos for our clients that's like, hey, here's my meal prep for an entire week. I'm going to do it in under 45 minutes.
There's some possibilities here. What will play out, we can't tell you, but stay tuned.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this was a super long episode, so we will leave it here. Go ahead and sign us off.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. Stay in touch with us on the socials at Vegan Proteins and at Muscles by Brussels. Hit the contact button on veganproteins.com. You will get a response from one of us right away. Once again, my name is Giacomo.
And I'm Dani.
And we'll talk to you soon.